right, Joe, so I thought we'd take a look at the internet weather for this week. This 1911 TCP, you would probably think, oh my God, it jumped 647 positions from the previous week. It's really not that big of a deal. First of all, 1911 TCP is the Tritium Niagara Fox protocol, which is a building automation industrial control system type protocol. The majority of the activity we see on this is coming from good guys. The reason it jumps so high here is because when we do our program, it actually falls kind of on a day when they happen to scan more versus, so they kind of have a sliding window. Every once in a while it jumps in because they do all their scanning on a Monday.
It's really a cyclical kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very cyclical.
There is scanning going on the internet that's not malicious. There's, folks doing research, folks kind of understanding the internet. We call them good guys or white hat activity. So that was interesting.
The first one that I kind of highlighted is 5431 TCP. Some of these other ones we talk about all the time. Telnet, it's been a problem forever, so we've talked about it enough. Right. 445 TCP, WannaCry related stuff, we all know about it. So 5431 TCP is interesting to me, and 5555 TCP is interesting. We're going to go take a closer look at that. The first one that's really interesting to me, I don't really have a full answer yet, 5431 TCP, and this is a 90-day picture. So prior to not that far back, so middle of February here, we didn't really see a lot of scanning. The weird thing about this is it's very spiky. So they're scanning and it stops again really quickly. But the volume of scan sources is 90,000. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of devices to all of a sudden start scanning and then stop. Normally they start and they kind of you see this kind of waveform and you'll see a decay pattern. This is kind of weird and I don't know what to make of it yet. But when I looked at these scan sources, lots of them are in the US and India. It's probably or possibly related to a Broadcom universal plug-and-play format string exploit. This is my guess as to why people are scanning on this. I think there's probably some botnet forming from these devices that seem to be scanning on that. When I looked at the scan sources, a lot of them look like some sort of embedded routers. It has this micro HTTPD web server that announces itself as broadband routers. So you can see here, this is just a sample. When I looked at a bunch of these scan sources, I could see in Shodan that a lot of them are listening on port 80, and they have this service running. I don't know exactly what it is, but some sort of probably home router web interface. Micro HTTPD is a very common web server. It's a very tight, small web server that a lot of people use. Our geographic picture can kind of show there is a lot of density in the US of this, and there's a lot of density in India, and then there's kind of scatterings around other places. This one, port 5555 TCP, this is actually related to Android devices that have the developer debug console open. That's what that is. That port is for. Somebody figured this out, that you can connect to it and take over these Android devices if they have that port open. So they've scooped up a bunch of these. This has a really nice recruitment wave here. I've never seen something so smooth as the way it actually recruited all these devices. Again, it's around 6,000 to 7,000 devices. So, and it's kind of come down to maybe, what is this, around 4,500, 4,000. What they've been doing with these ones is they compromise the device and they install some malware that starts doing Monero mining. And it does affect phones, but there's also a lot of Android IoT-based devices out there. So there's tons of IoT, little appliances, routers, network attached storage, all kinds of other little gadgets that run Android as their base operating system.
Do you think if we combined all the scanning for different cryptocurrencies, it would compare to those top 3 that we looked at in the charts? Or?
That's an interesting idea. We should probably try to do something like that at some point. Because cryptocurrency, as we've talked about, is very popular in terms of what they're leveraging the botnets for lately. And the last one I wanted to point out, which is actually not on the top 10, but is important. We started to see reflective denial of service attacks using this port 11211 UDP, which is memcached. And memcached is this, it's basically like a distributed RAM across devices, and it's for caching database results, and it lets you speed up websites that are very database-centric. So there's probably about 90,000 or so of these exposed on the internet. There's some bad actors out there just recently discovered it within the past 5 days here to use this as a reflective attack vector, and it has really large amplification. So I can send one really small packet it'll send 10,000 packets back to the victim. In this case, the amplification is really through the roof.
Wow.
Because what happens is you can make a very small query and it like can dump a big state table back to you. So they're seeing like 10,000 to 51,000 times amplification for a small packet. And that's what you really want if you're a bad guy and you're using these things for reflection. The bigger the amplification, the less work I have to do to send a small packet because I get a really big payoff going back to my target victim. If I went back even further, you wouldn't see any activity here. There's a little tiny little blip here, which is probably worth a little bit more analysis to see who was that tiny little blip.
Yeah.
But we started to see some attacks going on, and this one is around 55 gigabits, 130 gigabits. So this is something to pay attention to. Cloudflare actually today just put out an article about this, a blog posting. Memcached, when I looked it up in Shodan, it shows 103,000, but only 93,000 or so are actually memcached, according to what it says here. So, but still, 90,000 is significant, especially with that amplification factor. This is going to be a pretty important one in the upcoming days for people to keep an eye on, because I have a feeling it's going to get abused by more people. And that's all I really had for this week.
I always kind of think it's cool when we see scanning before anyone really knows what it is attributed to. We're kind of looking at the network before there's a news story, before there's a named botnet, before there's a device that announces a vulnerability. So, we're seeing this in the network, and probably we'll see some more information about what it really is coming down the road.